The starship Horizon's Edge dropped out of hyperspace with a gentle shudder that ran through its metal bones. Dr. Gino Kim pressed his face against the observation window and watched as a blue-green world slowly grew larger before them. After 6 months of traveling through the dark between stars, seeing a planet again made his heart beat faster. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Captain Hannah Park said as she joined him at the window. Her uniform was crisp and clean, unlike his own wrinkled clothes. Gino had spent most of the journey in the lab studying rock samples from their last stop. "It looks perfect," Gino replied. "Almost too perfect." The planet below them was covered in green forests and blue oceans. White clouds drifted across its surface like cotton balls. From space, it looked exactly like the kind of world humans had been searching for since they first left Earth. A world where they could build new cities and raise families under an alien sun. Captain Park nodded toward the bridge. "The aliens are already taking their readings. They say the air is good to breathe and the gravity is just right for us. No dangerous life forms either." Gino watched the alien crew members work at their stations. The galactic survey team included 3 different species. The tall, gray-skinned Altarians moved with quick, precise movements. Their large black eyes could see far more than human eyes could. The short, furry Kelvins had hearing so sharp they could detect sounds from miles away. The blue-scaled Nexians could smell chemicals in the air that humans would never notice. All of them were better than humans at most things. Their technology was more advanced. Their senses were sharper. Their ships were faster. Sometimes Gino wondered why they even bothered bringing humans along on these survey missions. "Dr. Kim, we're ready for the first landing party," announced Commander Vell, the lead Altarian. His voice was flat and emotionless, as always. "Your geological equipment is prepared." Gino gathered his tools and followed the team to the shuttle bay. Engineer Daeho Lee was already there, checking the small transport ship they would use to reach the planet's surface. Daeho was younger than Gino, but he was one of the best engineers in the human fleet. He could fix anything and build equipment, from spare parts. "Excited?" Daeho asked with a grin. "It's been a while since we found a world this promising." "That's what worries me," Gino replied. "In my experience, planets that look too good usually have hidden problems." The shuttle ride down was smooth. The planet's atmosphere was calm, with no storms or dangerous winds. They landed in a wide valley surrounded by rolling hills. The air smelled clean and fresh, like Earth after a spring rain. Birds sang in the trees nearby, and a gentle breeze moved through the grass. The alien team members immediately began their work. They set up their advanced scanners and took readings of everything around them. Their machines could analyze the soil, the air, and even the genetic structure of the local plants in minutes. Gino unpacked his own equipment. His tools were simpler than what the aliens used, but they got the job done. He had a basic scanner for checking rock types, a drill for taking soil samples, and a seismic detector for measuring ground vibrations. Nothing fancy, but reliable. "All readings normal," Commander Vell announced after an hour. "This world is suitable for human colonization. The soil is rich, the climate is stable. There are no toxic elements in the environment." Captain Park smiled. "Excellent news. We'll establish a temporary base here and begin detailed surveys." Over the next 3 days, the team spread out across the valley. The aliens worked with their usual efficiency, mapping every square meter and cataloging every species of plant and animal they found. Their reports were perfect and complete. Gino worked alone as he preferred. He walked slowly across the landscape, stopping to examine interesting rock formations and collect samples. His work was slower than the aliens, but he liked to take his time. Sometimes the most important discoveries came from noticing small details that machines missed. On the 3rd day, something strange happened. Gino was kneeling beside a stream, filling a water sample bottle, when he felt it. A tiny vibration came up through the ground and into his knees. It was so faint he almost missed it. He stayed still and waited. A few seconds later, it happened again. He pulled out his seismic detector and placed it on the ground. The device was designed to measure earthquakes and underground movement, but the screen showed nothing. According to the machine, the ground was perfectly still. Gino frowned and picked up the detector. He checked its settings and ran a quick test. Everything seemed to be working normally. He placed it back on the ground and waited. Again, he felt the tiny vibration through his body, but the machine detected nothing. "That's odd," he said to himself. He stood up and walked to a different spot. After a few minutes, he felt the vibration again. It was very subtle, like the distant rumble of thunder, but he was sure it was real. His equipment, however, continued to show normal readings. That evening, back at the temporary camp, Gino mentioned the vibrations to Captain Park. "My seismic detector isn't picking anything up," he explained. "But I'm certain I felt something. It's like a pulse coming from deep underground." Captain Park looked concerned. "Could it be seismic activity? Underground instability?" "I don't think so. It's too regular, too gentle. It almost feels like—" Gino paused, trying to find the right words. "Like a heartbeat." Commander Vell overheard their conversation. "We have detected no seismic activity," he said in his flat voice. "Our instruments are far more sensitive than human equipment. If there were underground vibrations, we would know." The blue-scaled Nexian scientist Cole nodded in agreement. "Our deep ground scanners have mapped the planet's entire crust. There is no geological instability. Perhaps Dr. Kim's equipment is malfunctioning." Gino felt his face grow warm. The aliens were probably right. Their technology was much better than his. If they hadn't detected anything, then there probably wasn't anything to detect. Maybe his old equipment was finally breaking down. But that night, as he lay in his sleeping bag, Gino felt the vibration again. It came up through the ground and into his body. This time, he paid closer attention to it. The pulse was slow and steady, like the breathing of something enormous. And there was something else about it, something he couldn't quite explain. It felt lonely. The thought surprised him. How could a vibration feel lonely? That was impossible. Vibrations were just physical phenomena. They didn't have emotions. But as Gino lay there in the darkness, listening to the alien night sounds and feeling that slow, deep pulse beneath him, he couldn't shake the feeling that something vast and patient was trying to communicate. Something that had been waiting for a very long time for someone to notice it. Something that only a human could hear. The next morning, Gino woke up before the others. The sun was just starting to rise over the hills, painting the sky in soft colors. He grabbed his equipment and walked away from the camp, wanting to test something without the aliens watching him. He found a quiet spot near a grove of tall trees that looked similar to earth oaks. The ground here was soft and covered with fallen leaves. Gino set down his pack and pulled out his seismic detector. He placed it carefully on the ground and turned it on. The screen showed flat lines. No movement detected. Gino knelt down beside the machine and placed his hands flat on the earth. He closed his eyes and waited. After a few minutes, he felt it again, the slow, deep pulse that seemed to come from far below. His detector remained silent. "What are you hiding?" he whispered to the ground. He opened his pack and pulled out a different piece of equipment. This was a vibration analyzer that he normally used to study how sound waves moved through different types of rock. It was more sensitive than his seismic detector, designed to pick up the tiniest movements. Gino connected the analyzer to a metal probe and pushed the probe deep into the soil. Then he lay down flat on the ground, pressing his ear to the earth while watching the analyzer screen. For 20 minutes, nothing happened. Then, just as he felt the pulse through his body, the analyzer showed a tiny spike. It was so small that most people would have missed it. But Gino had been studying vibrations for 15 years. He knew what he was looking at. The pulse was real. It was coming from deep underground, probably from the planet's core. But it was operating at a frequency so low that normal equipment couldn't detect it. The vibration analyzer could barely pick it up, and only because Gino had adjusted its settings to the most sensitive level possible. He spent the rest of the morning taking measurements. The pulse came every 47 seconds exactly. It never varied, not even by a fraction of a second. That ruled out natural geological activity. Earthquakes and volcanic activity were random. This was something else. When he returned to camp, Engineer Daeho Lee was working on one of the shuttle's engines. "You're up early," Daeho said, looking up from his tools. "Find anything interesting?" Gino hesitated. He trusted Daeho more than anyone else on the team, but his discovery sounded crazy even to himself. "Maybe. I need to ask you something about frequencies." Daeho wiped his hands on a rag and gave Gino his full attention. "What kind of frequencies?" "Very low ones, below normal hearing range. Is there any reason why humans might be able to detect vibrations that alien species can't?" Daeho thought for a moment. "Actually, yes. Human nervous systems evolved differently than most alien species. We're more sensitive to certain types of physical vibration because of how our inner ears developed. Most aliens have different balance organs." "What about the Altarians?" "Their senses are much better than ours." "Better for most things," Daeho agreed. "But not everything. Their hearing is focused on higher frequencies. They can hear sounds we can't, but they might miss very low vibrations that we would feel." "Why do you ask?" Gino explained about the pulses he had been detecting. Daeho listened without interrupting, his expression growing more serious as the story continued. "You think the planet is trying to communicate?" Daeho asked when Gino finished. "I think something is. The pattern is too regular to be natural." "And there's something else." Gino paused, feeling foolish. When I feel the pulse, it's like it has emotion behind it. I know that sounds crazy." Daeho didn't laugh. Instead, he looked thoughtful. "Not as crazy as you might think. Humans are good at reading emotional content in sounds and vibrations. It's how we understand music and recognize feelings in people's voices. If something was trying to communicate through vibration, we might be the only species that could understand the emotional meaning." That afternoon, Gino asked Captain Park if he could extend his geological survey for a few more days. She agreed, thinking he was just being thorough. Gino spent the next 3 days mapping the vibrations across the valley. He discovered that they were stronger in some places than others. Near a large hill in the center of the valley, the pulse was so strong he could feel it even while standing. At the edges of the valley, it was much weaker. More importantly, he began to notice variations in the pulse. Most of the time, it was steady and regular, but sometimes it changed slightly. The rhythm would speed up or slow down just a little. Sometimes it felt stronger, sometimes weaker. Gino started keeping detailed notes about when these changes happened. He noticed that the pulse seemed to react to his presence. When he first arrived at a new location, the vibration would strengthen, slightly, as if something was noticing him. When he stayed in one place for a long time, the rhythm would slow down and become gentler. On the 4th day, something amazing happened. Gino was sitting beside a small lake, taking water samples, when he felt the pulse change dramatically. Instead of the usual steady rhythm, it became faster and more complex. It reminded him of Morse code, but much more sophisticated. He grabbed his notebook and started writing down the pattern. Long pulse, short pulse, long pulse, 3 short pulses. The sequence repeated several times, then changed to a different pattern. As he worked, Gino began to feel something he had never experienced before. The vibrations weren't just random signals. They carried meaning. Not words exactly, but feelings and ideas that his mind could somehow understand. The first message was simple: curiosity. Something was curious about him. Gino placed his hand on the ground and tried to tap back. He used his knuckles to create vibrations in the earth, copying the rhythm he had felt. The response was immediate. The pulse from below became stronger and more excited. The rhythm changed again, becoming faster and more complex. This time, the emotion behind it was clear: joy. Something deep inside the planet was happy that he had responded. Over the next hour, Gino and the unknown presence exchanged simple patterns. He couldn't understand most of what it was trying to tell him, but the emotional content was becoming clearer. Loneliness was the strongest feeling, a deep sadness that seemed to stretch back over countless years. Whatever was down there had been alone for a very long time. When Gino finally returned, To camp that evening, he was shaking with excitement. Captain Park noticed his condition immediately. "Dr. Kim, you look like you've seen a ghost. Are you feeling well?" Gino took a deep breath. "Captain, I need to speak with you privately. I've made a discovery that could change everything we know about this planet." Captain Park led him to her command tent. Gino told her everything from the first vibrations to his communication attempts that afternoon. When he finished, she sat in silence for a long time. "You're telling me the planet is alive?" she finally asked. "I'm telling you something inside the planet is intelligent and trying to communicate. And as far as I can tell, humans are the only species that can hear it." Captain Park looked out through the tent flap at the peaceful valley around them. Somewhere beneath their feet, something vast and patient was waiting for them to understand. "What do you need from me?" she asked. Captain Park gave Gino permission to continue his research, but she made him promise to be careful. She also assigned engineer Dae-Ho Lee to help him build better equipment for communicating with whatever was beneath the ground. "If this is real," she said, "we need to understand it properly, but we also need to be ready to explain it to the Confederation. They won't believe us without solid proof." Dae-Ho worked for 2 days building a new vibration detector. It was much more sensitive than anything Gino had used before. The device could pick up the tiniest movements in the earth and translate them into patterns that appeared on a screen. "This should help you understand what it's trying to say," Dae-Ho explained as he showed Gino how to use the new equipment. "I've also added a transmitter that can send vibrations back into the ground. You won't have to tap with your hands anymore." Gino took the new equipment to the center of the valley, where the vibrations were strongest. He set up the detector near a large boulder that seemed to be positioned perfectly for his work. As soon as he turned on the machine, the screen filled with complex patterns. The planet was already trying to talk to him. For the first hour, Gino just watched and took notes. The patterns were much more complex than he had realized. There were layers of meaning in every pulse, like a language that used rhythm, strength, and timing to carry different types of information. Slowly, he began to understand pieces of what the planet was trying to tell him. The first clear message was about time. The consciousness beneath the ground was very old, much older than human civilization. It had been aware and thinking for millions of years. The second message was about loneliness. The planet had watched the stars for countless ages, hoping that someone would visit who could hear its voice. Many species had come and gone, but none of them could detect its attempts to communicate. Then came the third message, and this one filled Gino with sadness. The planet showed him memories of previous visitors. Through the vibrations, Gino could sense the excitement the planetary consciousness had felt when ships first landed on its surface thousands of years ago. It had tried so hard to welcome the visitors, to show them that it was alive and friendly. But every time it tried to communicate, disaster followed. When the planet felt joy at having visitors, its emotions caused storms. When it tried to reach out to the aliens walking on its surface, the ground would shake. When it became sad as the visitors prepared to leave, its grief would trigger earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The alien visitors always thought these were natural disasters. They would either flee in terror or die in the chaos. The planet would be left alone again, carrying the guilt of accidentally destroying those it had tried to befriend. "You tried to help them," Gino whispered to the ground. "But they couldn't understand." The vibration that came back felt like a sob. Deep, painful, and full of regret. Over the next few days, the planetary consciousness shared more of its history with Gino. It told him about civilizations that had tried to build cities on its surface, only to abandon them when the planet's attempts at communication caused too many problems. It showed him the ruins of settlements buried beneath centuries of growth, their builders long gone. The planet had learned to stay quiet when visitors came. It had taught itself to suppress its emotions, to keep its joy and excitement locked away so it wouldn't accidentally hurt anyone. But the loneliness had grown stronger with each passing century. Then humans had arrived, and for the first time in ages, someone could hear its voice. "We can hear you," Gino said, placing his hand on the transmitter. "We know you're there, and we understand that you don't want to hurt anyone." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Joy, relief, gratitude, and desperate hope flooded through the vibrations. The planet had waited so long for someone to understand. But then came a new message, and this one was urgent. The planetary consciousness had been listening to the radio, communications between the human team and their ship in orbit. It understood that they were here to decide if the planet was suitable for colonization. It knew that other ships would come, bringing machines and equipment to change its surface forever. The planet wasn't afraid of humans living on its surface. It wanted that. It had dreamed of having friends, of being part of a living community instead of a silent, empty world. But it was terrified of what would happen if the humans treated it like every other dead rock in space. Through the vibrations, the planet showed Gino what it feared most: mining equipment digging deep into its crust, explosives blasting apart, the crystal networks that allowed it to think, cities built without any consideration for the delicate systems that kept it alive and aware. If that happened, the planetary consciousness would die. Not quickly, but slowly, piece by piece, as its ability to think and feel was destroyed by industrial development. "They don't know you're alive," Gino said. "If I tell them, if I explain what you are, they'll listen. Humans aren't like the other species. We can learn to work together." The planet's response was complicated. Hope mixed with fear. It wanted to believe Gino, but it had been disappointed so many times before. Then came the most difficult message of all. The planetary consciousness revealed that it had been monitoring communications from the human ship. It knew that the Galactic Confederation was desperately searching for resources to support their war against an expanding enemy empire. This planet contained rare minerals that were essential for building faster-than-light engines. The planet was willing to share those resources. It could even help extract them safely, using its control over geological processes, but only if it was treated as a partner, not property. "You want to help us win the war?" Gino asked. The vibration that came back was firm and determined. The planet had watched civilizations rise and fall for millions of years. It understood the importance of stopping those who would destroy and conquer. It wanted to be part of something larger than itself, to finally have a purpose beyond simply existing. But it also made its conditions clear. It would help humans and their allies, but only if they acknowledged its consciousness and treated it with respect. It would not allow itself to be strip-mined into lifelessness for short-term gain. That evening, Gino returned to camp with recordings of his conversations with the planet. Captain Park and Engineer Deho listened to the translated vibrations with growing amazement. "This changes everything," Captain Park said when Gino finished his explanation. "A living planet that wants to be our ally. The strategic implications are enormous." "But will the Confederation believe us?" Deho asked. "And even if they do, will they care? They need those resources desperately." Gino looked out at the peaceful valley around them. Somewhere beneath their feet, an ancient consciousness was waiting for humanity to make a choice. Would they see it as a partner and friend, or just another resource to be exploited? "We have to try," he said. "This planet has been alone for millions of years. It's offering us friendship and alliance. We can't let fear or greed destroy that chance." Captain Park nodded slowly. "I'll contact the ship and request a meeting with Confederation Command. But Gino, you need to understand the stakes. If we can't convince them that this planet is more valuable as an ally than as a mining site, they'll authorize full resource extraction, and once that process starts, there's no stopping it." Gino felt the familiar pulse beneath his feet, gentler now, as if the planet was trying to comfort him. The consciousness below knew the risks as well as he did. But for the first time in millions of years, it had hope. Someone had finally heard its voice. Now it was up to humanity to decide what would happen next. The response from Confederation Command came 3 days later. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the communication screen in Captain Park's tent, her expression serious and tired. Behind her, Gino could see the busy bridge of a military starship. "Captain Park, I've read your report about Dr. Kim's discovery. I'll be honest with you. Under normal circumstances, I would order a full psychological evaluation for everyone on your team." Captain Park straightened. Admiral, I can assure you that Dr. Kim is completely stable. Engineer Lee has verified his findings independently. I understand that, Admiral Chen replied. But these are not normal circumstances. Our forces are losing ground against the Dominion Empire. We need the resources from that planet, and we need them soon. 3 more colony worlds fell to enemy attacks last week. Gino stepped forward. Admiral, the planet wants to help us. It's offering to provide the materials we need, but only if we work with it instead of mining it to death. Admiral Chen looked at him with tired eyes. Doctor, I appreciate your passion, but I have to think about millions of lives. If there's even a chance that your supposed planetary consciousness is wrong or lying, I can't risk it. Dead planets don't have hidden agendas. But living planets can be our greatest allies, Gino argued. This world has been conscious for millions of years. It understands strategy and cooperation in ways we can't imagine. The Admiral was quiet for a moment. I'm sending a full diplomatic team to evaluate your claims. They'll arrive in 1 week. If you can prove beyond doubt that this planet is truly conscious and willing to help us, we'll consider your proposal. If not, we proceed with standard resource extraction. The communication ended, leaving the 3 humans alone in the tent. 1 week, Captain Park said quietly. That's not much time to prove something this incredible. The planet will help us, Gino replied. It wants to show the Confederation what it can do. Engineer Daiho looked worried. But what if they don't believe us even with proof? What if they decide a living planet is too dangerous to trust? That night, Gino went to his usual communication spot and explained the situation to the planetary consciousness. The response was immediate and determined. The planet understood the stakes. It was ready to demonstrate its abilities in ways that even the most skeptical aliens couldn't ignore. Over the next few days, the planet began to change. It started with the weather. The sky, which had been clear since they arrived, filled with perfectly organized clouds. The clouds moved in precise patterns, forming shapes and symbols in the air. First, they spelled out words in the human alphabet: hello and friend and help. Then, the planet did something even more impressive. It began to grow. In the valley where the humans had made their camp, new plants started sprouting from the ground. But these weren't random growths. The plants formed geometric patterns that could be seen clearly from orbit. Circles, triangles, and complex mathematical equations appeared across the landscape, all made from living vegetation. Commander Vell and the other aliens finally began to take notice. This is impossible, the Altarian said, staring at his scanner. Readings. Plant growth doesn't follow mathematical patterns. Something is controlling this. Call, the blue-scaled Nexian, ran test after test on the soil and air. There are no chemicals that could cause this kind of directed growth, no technology that we can detect. Yet it's happening. The furry Kelvin scientist Nex was the most disturbed. My people have surveyed thousands of worlds. We have never seen anything like this. Either this planet has technology beyond our understanding or Dr. Kim is right, Captain Park finished. The planet is alive and intelligent. But the planet wasn't finished with its demonstration. On the 4th day, it began to produce the rare minerals that the Confederation needed so desperately. Not through random geological processes, but by pushing pure, refined materials up through the ground in neat piles. The minerals appeared overnight, arranged in perfect rows like gifts waiting to be collected. Engineer Daiho tested the materials and found them to be of higher quality than anything that could be extracted through normal mining. It's like the planet is refining them internally, he told Gino. This is the purest ore I've ever seen. The most impressive demonstration came on the 5th day. 3 Dominion Empire scout ships appeared at the edge of the solar system. They were small, fast vessels designed to gather intelligence about Confederation forces. Normally, the human ship in orbit would have had to chase them down, and the scouts might have escaped to report the location of this valuable world. Instead, the planet took action. It began generating massive electromagnetic pulses from its core. The pulses were precisely aimed and perfectly timed. They didn't damage the Confederation ship, but they completely scrambled the electronics on the enemy scouts. The Dominion ships found themselves blind and helpless, drifting in space with no way to send messages or navigate home. The Confederation ship easily captured all 3 vessels without firing a shot. "How did it do that?" Captain Park asked when she received the report from orbit. "The planet can control its magnetic field," Gino explained, translating the vibrations he felt through his equipment. "It's been watching our ship's communications and learned how our electronics work. It can defend itself and its allies without causing any harm to friendly forces." Even Commander Vell had to admit he was impressed. Such precise control over electromagnetic fields requires incredible intelligence and processing power. No artificial system could manage such complexity. When the diplomatic team arrived on the 7th day, they found a world that was obviously and undeniably alive. The lead diplomat, Ambassador Yuki Sato, was the experienced negotiator who had worked with dozens of alien species, but she had never negotiated with a planet before. Gino served as translator, converting the planet's vibrations into words that the diplomatic team could understand. The conversation that followed would change galactic history. "What do you want from us?" Ambassador Sato asked. The planet's response was simple and clear: recognition, friendship, purpose. "And what do you offer in return?" "Everything I have. My resources, my protection, my knowledge. I have watched civilizations rise and fall for millions of years. I understand strategy, technology, and the patterns of war. I can be your greatest ally, but only if you treat me as a partner, not property." Ambassador Sato was quiet for a long time. Finally, she asked the question that everyone was thinking. "How do we know we can trust you? How do we know you won't turn against us someday?" The planet's response came with such deep emotion that even the alien diplomats could feel it through Gino's translation. "I have been alone for millions of years. I have finally found someone who can hear my voice. Why would I destroy the only friendship I have ever known?" The negotiation continued for hours. The planet made its offer clear. It would provide unlimited resources, strategic defense, and technological assistance to help the Confederation win the war. In return, it wanted legal recognition as a sentient being with rights and protections. It wanted to be the first planet granted citizenship in the Galactic Confederation. Ambassador Sato looked at her team, then at Captain Park and Gino. "This is unprecedented. I'll need to consult with the highest levels of government. But I can tell you this: if what you're offering is real, it could turn the tide of this war." The planet pulsed once beneath their feet, a vibration that felt like hope mixed with determination. "It's real," Gino said, "and it's been waiting millions of years for this chance." The debate in the Galactic Confederation Council lasted for 3 weeks. Representatives from dozens of worlds argued about whether a planet could be granted citizenship rights. Some called it impossible, others called it dangerous. A few called it the most important decision in galactic history. Gino remained on the planet's surface during the entire debate, maintaining constant communication with the consciousness below. The planet was patient, but anxious. It had waited millions of years for this opportunity, but every day brought the risk that fear would overcome wisdom in the council chambers. "What if they say no?" Gino asked during one of their conversations. Planet's response came with deep sadness but also resolve. "Then I will continue to wait. But I will not allow myself to be destroyed for resources. I have learned to defend myself over the millions of years." Gino understood the message. If the Confederation tried to strip mine the planet against its will, they would face resistance, unlike anything they had ever encountered. A conscious world could make itself completely uninhabitable if necessary. On the 20th day of the debate, Ambassador Sato received an urgent message from the front lines. The Dominion Empire had launched a massive assault on the Kepler 438 system, one of the Confederation's most important manufacturing centers. 3 planets were under siege, and the defending fleet was badly outnumbered. The planet sensed the distress in the communications even before Gino could translate the news. "I can help," came the immediate response through the vibrations. "But we must act now." Ambassador Sato looked at the communication equipment with surprise. How can you help? That system is 12 light-years away. What happened next amazed everyone present. The planet began to sing. It wasn't sound that human ears could hear. Instead, it was a deep, powerful vibration that traveled through space itself. The planet was using gravitational waves, ripples in the fabric of spacetime that could cross vast distances instantly. On every inhabited world within 50 light-years, sensitive instruments detected the signal. But more importantly, other planets began to respond. Gino listened in wonder as his translation equipment picked up return signals from distant worlds. Not all planets were conscious, but some were, and they had been listening to the signals from his planet with growing curiosity. Within hours, a network of planetary consciousness was establishing itself across the galaxy. Worlds that had been isolated and alone for millions of years were suddenly able to communicate with each other. And they all wanted to help fight against the Dominion Empire. The planet beneath Gino's feet began coordinating a defense strategy with its newly discovered siblings across the stars. Conscious worlds started generating electromagnetic pulses that disrupted Dominion communications. Others created gravitational anomalies that interfered with enemy navigation systems. Most importantly, they began sharing information. The conscious planets had been watching galactic civilization for millennia. They knew things about the Dominion Empire that no intelligence agency had ever discovered. Secret bases, hidden supply routes, weaknesses in their technology that could be exploited. The Battle of Kepler 438 turned into a complete victory for the Confederation. Dominion ships found themselves lost, confused, and unable to coordinate their attacks. Their supposedly secret reinforcement fleets were intercepted before they could join the battle. Within 3 days, the entire Dominion assault force had been defeated or captured. The news reached the Council just as they were preparing for the final vote on planetary citizenship. President Nakamura of the Confederation called for an emergency session. "The events of the past 3 days have shown us something remarkable," she announced to the assembled representatives. "We are not alone in the universe. Conscious planets exist, and they want to be our allies. The question now is not whether we should grant citizenship to one planet, but how quickly we can establish diplomatic relations with an entire network of living worlds." The vote was unanimous. The Planetary Consciousness Recognition Act passed with full support from every member species. For the first time in galactic history, non-biological entities would be granted full citizenship rights and legal protections. Gino's planet, which chose the name Gaia 7 in honor of humanity's ancient Earth goddess, became the first planetary citizen of the Galactic Confederation. Within months, 17 other conscious worlds had applied for citizenship and alliance. The war against the Dominion Empire ended 6 months later. With an entire network of living planets providing intelligence, resources, and strategic support, the Confederation forces were unstoppable. The Dominion fleets found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn, their secret plans exposed before they could act. But the most important changes came after the war ended. Gino accepted the position of first human planetary ambassador, establishing a permanent diplomatic mission on Gaia 7's surface. His job was to help humans and the planetary consciousness understand each other better. Captain Park became the commander of the 1st Planetary Defense Force, a joint military unit designed to protect conscious worlds from future threats. She worked closely with Gaia 7 to develop new defensive technologies that no enemy could overcome. Engineer Daiho Lee founded the Institute for Bioplanetary Technology, studying ways to integrate human engineering with planetary consciousness. The technologies they developed were beyond anything previously imagined. Cities that grew instead of being built. Transportation systems that worked in harmony with planetary ecosystems. Energy sources that drew power directly from a world's living systems. But perhaps the most amazing development was the discovery that consciousness might be far more common in the universe than anyone had imagined. Survey teams across the galaxy began reporting similar findings to Gino's discovery. Planets that seemed dead and lifeless were found to have sleeping consciousness that could be awakened. Moons, asteroids, and even some gas giant clouds showed signs of awareness when examined with the right equipment. Humanity found itself uniquely suited to detecting and communicating with these sleeping minds. Human sensitivity to low frequency, vibrations, and ability to interpret emotional content made them the galaxy's premier planetary diplomats. 5 years after first contact with Gaia 7, the Confederation included over 200 conscious worlds as full citizens. The galaxy had become a true community of living beings, with humans serving as the bridge between biological and planetary consciousness. Gino often walked across Gaia 7's surface in the evenings, feeling the gentle pulse of his planetary friend beneath his feet. The ground would shift slightly to make his path easier, and the weather would adjust to keep him comfortable. Sometimes they would talk through their vibration equipment, but often they simply enjoyed each other's presence, in comfortable silence. The loneliness that had defined both human and planetary existence for so long was finally over. Humanity had found its purpose among the stars, not as conquerors or explorers, but as friends and partners to the living universe itself. On quiet nights, when Gino pressed his ear to the ground, he could hear the network of planetary consciousness spanning the galaxy. Dozens of worlds sharing thoughts, dreams, and stories across the vast distances of space. And at the center of it all was the simple truth that had started everything. Sometimes the most important discoveries came not from superior technology or advanced intelligence, but from the uniquely human ability to listen with both mind and heart. The universe was no longer silent. It was singing, and humanity had taught it the words.